This is the RadRover 5 from Rad Power Bikes. It's promoted as the most popular e-bike ever sold in the US. And a quick ride is all you'll probably need to see why. It has an adjustable front shock, a 7-speed freewheel, an electric motor capable of giving you 750 watts of power, one of the lightest batteries of its kind, delivering 25 to 40 miles of range or more. And it's all riding on 4-inch wide tires, sitting in a great looking painted aluminum frame. E-bikes used to fall into two categories. You had your really expensive high-end e-bikes that could cost as much as 5 figures in some cases, and then you had your less expensive e-bikes that were geared more towards commuting and better left on pavement and sidewalks. Those days are long gone, and people looking into e-bikes have a broad range to choose from in both price and capability. The RadRover 5 is so popular because it offers such a great mix of features at a relatively low price, and it's backed by an American company that has a reputation of very good technical and customer support. Full details about all the products I feature can always be found in the video description and pinned in the comments below, and using those links to make your purchases helps out the channel tremendously. But keep watching to get a better idea of whether or not the RadRover 5 is the right e-bike for you. The RadRover 5 is the 5th generation of all-terrain electric assist bike from Rad Power Bikes, who credibly claims it's the #1 selling e-bike in the US. It's certainly the most common e-bike I see where I walk and ride, and its features at its $15.99 MSRP certainly have a lot to do with it. The RadRover 5 is a Class 2 e-bike powered by a Bafang hub motor tuned to achieve the class's maximum allowable 750 watt output. That's equivalent to 1 horsepower, with the hub motor's gearing turning that into 80 Newton meters or 59 foot-pounds of torque to help a rider get up hills and accelerate across intersections. The rider can choose between 5 levels of pedal assist, activated by a 12 magnet sensor on the crank. A twist throttle on the right grip remains always ready should the rider want a boost of power while pedaling or to forgo pedaling altogether. Power either by pedal assist or by throttle is limited to 20 miles per hour, as is required by the RadRover 5's Class 2 designation. The human power drivetrain is applied via 170mm cranks and a 42-tooth chainring with a double-sided chain guard. A KMC Z7 chain transfers leg power to a nickel-plated DNP 11 to 34-tooth 7-speed freewheel. Shifting is managed by a Shimano Tourney thumb shifter mated to a Shimano Acera derailleur. The Wellgo chromoly pedals have 12 traction pins on each side with integral reflectors facing front and back. The 48-volt Samsung battery uses lithium NMC cells good for 800 charge cycles. Its 14 amp hour, 672 watt hour capacity will power the RadRover 5 for a minimum of 25 miles, but you'll find it very difficult to empty the battery that quickly if you're doing any of the pedaling at all. 45 miles of range is more realistic, with even more range easily achievable on flatter ground with more human pedaling. The included 120 volt 2 amp power supply will charge a fully depleted battery in only 5 to 6 hours. Tektro Aries mechanical binders grab 180mm rotors to stop the RadRover 5. Power to the hub motor is cut as soon as the brake levers are pulled, as each has a built-in motor inhibitor. Pulling either brake lever activates a brake light whether the running lights are on or off. RST supplies a Springer front shock mounted on a 240mm steering tube. Its 80mm of travel can be adjusted for rebound and compression with full lockout when you're powering up a tough climb and don't want to lose muscle power to bouncing. The RadRover 5 rides on 26-inch double wall rims and 4-inch wide Kenda Juggernaut puncture-resistant tires. Like many other Kenda tires, the Juggernauts have highly reflective rings under sidewalls for added visibility at night, both on and off-road. The 12-gauge stainless steel spokes are painted black to keep them from distracting your eye from the overall color scheme. Speaking of which, the 6061 aluminum frame comes standard in a very good-looking black finish. The Rad Power Bike sent me this limited edition forest green for my evaluation. It sold out within 2 days of the stock being released for sale, and that's not surprising to me at all. While it's not likely this particular color will be available from Rad again, the moral of the story is that if they offer a limited edition color that you like, buy it immediately or you might miss out. The matching black PVC fenders are now standard on the RadRover 5, and their stainless steel brackets will help keep both you and your hardware protected from messy conditions. The grips are black synthetic leather with matching black stitching. A matching Velo Plush saddle sits on a 350 by 27.2 millimeter Pro Max seat post. The saddle's integrated grab handle definitely makes managing the RadRover 5's 69-pound weight a bit easier. A very beefy kickstand provides a large pad to support that weight when you're parked even on soft soil. Its position on the frame means you won't hit it with your heel if you forget to pop it up before you start pedaling. Once folded, however, this kickstand will stay closed and quiet even on rough terrain. The RadRover 5 comes mostly assembled with all of the tools necessary to complete the bike. I'm showing you all 36 minutes I needed from opening the box to getting ready for a test ride. You'll see that much of the video I'm simply reviewing the excellent assembly video Rad has on their YouTube channel. I carefully split the box at all four corners so I don't have to lift anything, and the box ends up acting as protection for the bike should it tip over while I'm working on it. I'm also wearing knee pads, but you can actually use some of the packing foam as a kneeling pad, as I did when I assembled our Rad Mini Step Through 2. Assembly is very easy for anyone who has done any assembly whatsoever. No special knowledge is needed at all, as Rad's assembly video not only shows you what to do, but also explains the best way to do it. If you have any grip or mobility issues, a second person can certainly make a difference for some of the steps, but you don't have to be physically strong to do this. If you still prefer someone else to assemble your RadRover 5 for you, several companies contract with Rad to provide that service. However, any competent bike shop will have no problems doing this for you. The trick is to find a shop who isn't afraid to work on e-bikes they don't sell, though that's getting easier and easier with their exploding popularity. I've said it before, but my favorite thing about an e-bike for the kind of riding that I do is that I can get some help getting out of my neighborhood. This is quite a climb. First thing, coming out of my driveway. And it doesn't matter whether I'm out for a casual ride, just to enjoy the park, or I want to work out. The last thing that I want to be doing at 50 years old with the injuries I've accumulated is to have to hammer up a hill first thing without any kind of warm-up. But the pedal assist allows me to keep a good spin, keep a good cadence, a good turnover in my legs, to get a warm-up, and the motor isn't doing everything. I am absolutely working to get up this climb, but nowhere near as much as I'd have to without the help of the motor. Part of what makes the RadRover 5 so versatile is the fact that it's a Class 2 e-bike. Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes are regulated in most places the same exact way that non-electric bikes are regulated. And that's the way it is with this park. Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes are welcome to use any trail that a regular bike can use. And that's a big reason why I have one. This is the first big downhill this direction on the trail. And this is where I see that the mechanical brakes this has are adequate for this kind of riding. But I also see why a lot of people get hydraulic brakes as one of their first upgrades. Use a little throttle to get over that little hump there and back to zero pedal assist for warming up my legs. The RadRover 5 being probably the most popular e-bike on the market means that it's very upgradable. You have lots of aftermarket options for doing things like putting on hydraulic brakes. But pretty much any aftermarket bike accessory that you could want, whether it's racks or a suspension seat post or camera mount, or headlights, or those all are going to be compatible. You'll find them in the right size for the RadRover 5. And then when you get to e-bike specific upgrades like upgraded battery, upgraded controller, upgraded LCD, get a thumb throttle, all those things are available for the RadRover 5 as well. If there is a kind of component that you can upgrade on either a conventional mountain bike or an e-bike, there's probably somebody making that upgrade for the RadRover 5. These 26-inch wheels with 4-inch wide fat tires give this a completely different ride than any kind of bike with standard mountain bike tires. This is actually my first fat bike of any kind, true fat bike, and I love it, but it is a very different ride. The Kenda Juggernaut tires that were chosen for this bike have good traction, good knobs for trails exactly like this. You know, this has loose grit, this has loose gravel, but you're not going to deal with a lot of really slick mud, sloppy mud, where even more aggressive tires would be beneficial. You just don't need that for this kind of riding. And so what that means is you get less rolling resistance than if this had more aggressive tires. So it's less work for you and you get more range out of the battery. I run them at 20 PSI for a balance of not having too much rolling resistance, but getting good traction in the loose stuff, as well as comfort. One of the downsides of this frame though is the lack of a good place to put a water bottle cage. It has a mount underneath the down tube, but it's not really in a practical location, either for grabbing while you're riding or dealing with obstacles on the trail. It's really low down there. And so for now, for this test, I'm riding with a Camelback fanny pack, which means I can take a lot of water. But there are options for mounting water bottles on this bike that don't put the water bottles at risk when you're riding, or you at risk trying to grab them. Now we're on the paved greenway, and this is where, again, I think the Juggernauts are a very good choice of tire because they give you the flexibility to go on trails without so much aggressive knobs that it makes a ton of noise or gives you a lot of rolling resistance or causes you to squirrel around trying to stay in a straight line. Now, when I get up to around 20 miles an hour, pedestrians kind of wonder what the heck is coming their way, because it does sound motorized at that point, even though like right now I've got no motor going on at all. If anybody wonders whether or not you can get a workout with an electric bike, it's 69 pounds. They can turn the pedal assist to 0. If you can't get a workout on an electric bike, that is operator error because you absolutely can get exactly the same workout you could get on any bike. It's just you're going to have to play around with what pedal assist level is right for you to manage the rolling resistance of the 4-inch fat tires and the fact that you're sitting upright when you're rolling on something flat, and then the 69 pounds of it when you're at an incline. We're going to go out on the road here. Instead of riding on the sidewalk, there's actually a bike lane, and we're going to take this up to 20. The way Class 2 e-bikes work is they have to stop giving you power above 20 miles an hour And the controller in the RadRover 5 is programmed so it eases off the assist, whether it's just the throttle or with pedal assist like I have right now, as you approach 20 miles an hour. Like once it gets above 19.5 miles an hour, it slowly pulls off the power until you're at 0 power at about 20 miles an hour. But conversely, when you're slowing down, like climbing up this hill, it eases the power back on so you don't end up with this kick in the pants of the motor turning on 750 watts. And that is what I'm getting, 745. I'm getting 746, 747, 748. Legitimate 750 watts. I know that's a question because this is a motor that is tuned to get 750 watts. There are more powerful motors that are called 750 watt motors, but it is what it is. This is a motor that gives you 750 watts on demand, and not just for a short little bit. We're going to use the throttle to get through this intersection. We'll see if this car in front of me tries to cut across. No, thankfully, no. Yay! That was good and safe, and that's a great use of throttle. I had pedal assist at 0, so even though I was pedaling, my pedaling was additive to the power that I was delivering with the throttle itself. We're going to come up on some speed bumps here, and one of the ways to take these is to lift yourself a little bit off the saddle and squeeze the saddle between the muscles of your thigh. You don't want to just have your feet flat on the pedals. It's bending my camera mount a little bit. But I have my rear foot this way and pushing back, and my front foot is this way and pushing forward. And that helps the tread on the bottom of my stiff-soled shoes to grab into the pins of the pedals, and it's almost like I'm locked in with cleats. But the difference is, as soon as I relax that muscular compression, that cross compression, my feet come right off the pedals. The other thing I like about the twist throttle on Rad bikes is that it has play built into it, so that you're not just going to bump it and then it'll apply power to the motor. That's not to say that you can't accidentally twist the throttle. Of course you can, but you're going to have to twist it and hold it twisted before that motor kicks in. There's a little bit of a lag, and that's a safety feature. That's not a flaw. That's on purpose. So no throttle, motor. Just like that. So that makes it much less likely that you're gonna get yourself in trouble by accidentally hitting the throttle. So coming up here used to be a really eroded trail that was wide, just like this. But very recently, the park came in and cut this really awesome switchback narrow trail. It's basically single track, but it's still a multi-use trail that's open to bikes and horses in addition to pedestrians. And I would not have seen it if I didn't have this bike. This bike is what encouraged me to come back here and check it out. This section, however, is very loose, very loamy in sections, and so it's still a good test of the tire choice. And again, 20 psi, I have all the control that I want. I don't feel myself lacking for traction as I go from what is almost concrete like hard pack in this dry weather we have right now to a very loose sandy surface and back. That definitely can give smoother tires a problem, but not these juggernauts. Here's where the new trail splits off. The old trail went down that way. Look at this. This is fantastic. Gonna turn off pedal assist entirely, not gonna need it here. And I'm not gonna bomb around these turns because this is a two-way trail and it's pretty skinny to just come flying around not knowing who's coming the other way, whether it's a cyclist or a jogger or even a horse. Oh, this is so fun. Now, this is not technical single track by any stretch, but none of that is available to bikes out here in this park. All the technical single track, they're footpaths only. You can't take horses, you can't take bikes on them. So this is as much a bike trail that they've ever had out here in the 25 years that I've been coming out to this park. Yeah, cornering through gravel, no problem. Little whoop action here. Woo! Wow, I think you could catch air off of that if you did that fast enough. Okay, gonna use the little throttle to help get up that part of the trail because I have pedal assist at 0, but that was gonna be pretty tricky dragging the 69 pounds up. I'm gonna slow down because I cannot see who's coming around this corner. Okay, get the pedaling back on. It's all me. This is all me. More whoops. Oh, that is fun. Got a little berm that people are probably gonna kick up on. Wow. And then right here is where the new section of the trail ends, and then we're back on the old section. We're gonna come up to a creek crossing here, so I'm just gonna turn around, but I want to because now I wanna do that new trail the other way. Woo! So, the standover height for a guy with a 30-inch inseam is right there where I can do it standing straight up and down. But things do kind of have to split east and west, so to speak. I'm not smashing anything, but if I were to bend my knees as I landed, that could be a problem. Okay, so use a little throttle to help get started. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna keep pedal assist at 0 and crack the throttle on as I need it. Full throttle, get me up over this climb. Didn't need to get out of the saddle there. Only have like 200 watts helping me up. That's somewhere between like a pedal assist 2 or 3. Oh, here are the whoops from the other direction. Get a little speed going here. No throttle, just me. Loose stuff. Get the throttle back on. Again, this is not cheating. I'm working really hard along with the motor to make those climbs. I have no problems using this twist throttle just the way it is. I actually really like it. And I realize my opinion is not shared by all in that regard. Hey. And that's the end of that. Oh, that is so fun. And I would not know that even exists if it weren't for this bike right here, this RadRover 5, because I can't get out here and I wouldn't be challenging myself on climbs like that with my Cannondale Lefty or my Specialized or any of my mountain bikes, because I've reached a point where all my injuries that I've accumulated over my 50 years of existence, I get into kind of more elite shape, and then something blows up again, and it just keeps happening, and it's just been so discouraging. And finally I realized an e-bike is what I need, because I can get a really hard workout in when I want to. This is more like a casual one because I need to be talking about what I'm doing. But right now I've still been zero assist ever since cresting that last hill. I'm riding this. I'm providing all the power right now. It's not doing anything. And so, unlike a conventional bike, I can make this as difficult to ride cardiovascularly, muscularly, as a conventional mountain bike, but I can make it much easier to ride than a conventional mountain bike for sections of a trail where I just need that now. Frankly, I just need it to be able to do some of the tougher climbs, or when I just want to. This is a state park. This isn't a mountain bike racetrack. There are times where I come out here walking just to be in the park, and I can do the same thing on this bike and get to places that are just too far for me to walk. Places like that trail. The RadRover 5 is a bike that gives you access, and at a price that's really reasonable given what the market has set. How you doing? Yeah, more smiles, more smiles. See the bike and they know what it is. That's a nice reaction to get. Another bit of the access is actually the USB port in the LCD screen. I've got it running my GoPro. The battery on the GoPro is only good for about 45 minutes, but I'm already about an hour into this ride, maybe a little more. And so the battery would have long died, but it'll keep my GoPro going. As long as I've got memory card, I can get footage of my ride. If I were somewhere more remote, using my phone as a GPS, one of the things that can happen if you don't have good cell service is your phone will really crank up the antenna power, and you'll go through your phone's battery pretty quickly. Unfortunately, I don't get to hunt as much now as I used to, because speaking of access, I've lost access to a lot of the properties that I used to hunt. But a fair number of them, it was quite a hike from where you could park a car to where I'd have my stand. And I would have loved to have one of these to be able to get back and forth. Rad Power Bikes makes a number of models that are maybe more specifically geared to being a grocery getter or a city commuter. My wife has their Mini Step Through 2, which is a folding bike. This is a lot more like the Swiss Army knife in their line. The RadRover 5 has a very broad range of uses as a bike, and it makes total sense to me for this to be the bike that you get if you can handle the standover height, if you have any kind of variability in what you're going to want of a bike. And that is the end of this trail ride. Oh, so fun. So I just want you to give you an idea of the range that I used. I did almost 19 miles and I only used one bar. It was fully charged, but I got tons of range, and that was a very hilly ride. It's not mountainous. The hills are not long, but they are steep. But the idea was that I was getting a workout in the whole time. This wasn't doing all of the work itself. And so the kind of riding that I just did, I could easily do 80 miles of that. Wait a second. Let me rephrase that. The bike could easily do 80 miles of that, but I would not be able to. And so I am not going to run into range issues with this bike with the kinds of riding that I intend for it. It'll be interesting to see how this comes out with it being so dark, but this is the light that comes straight from the factory. And it's not really adequate for trail riding. It is a spot with a bit of a throw on the ground right in front of you. So it could be worse. As long as you're going slow, this would be okay to be on trails in the dark, but you can't do any kind of speed whatsoever because you can't plan ahead. That's why I recommend keeping this light and then also getting something like this Night Rider. This is my favorite aftermarket light, and I have this mounted on an accessory bar that's on the handlebars. And look at the difference. That's the factory light, and that's with the Night Rider. This is their 900 lumen light, and it was about 75 bucks, shipped free from Amazon. I'll put a link in the video description. But if you're going to be doing riding at night on trails, on places where you really need to be able to see everything, the factory light isn't going to be enough. If you're going to be on city streets that already have street lights, any place where there's going to be some secondary source of light for you, then that's going to be decent enough to show vehicles and pedestrians where you are and that you're on your way. In fact, if you're going to be riding for a long time, you can connect this light to the USB port and it will keep you in action for as long as you're going to be riding. That's another big plus of that USB port on the LCD panel. I actually did a bunch of real deal single track with this bike, but I'm going to save it for a separate video for two reasons. Number one, this video has already gotten long enough. And number two, I'm worried that I'm already overemphasizing off-road riding with the RadRover 5 when it truly is a good bike to get if you're going to stick mostly to pavement. I think most people who already own RadRovers use them like most people use their SUVs. They might not take them on challenging trails, but the capabilities are always there, giving them the peace of mind that their e-bike is capable of doing whatever they need it to do. On the flip side of that, I think more people need to know that the RadRover 5 comes from the factory, ready to tackle any trails that you'd be able to tackle with a conventional fat tire mountain bike. It's not a dedicated downhill racer. It's not a lightweight carbon fiber, nimble mountain bike for highly technical trails. However, it's capable of doing a whole lot more than greenways and fire roads. The battery is capable of a couple hours of the riding that I like to do, which is a whole lot more than I'm probably willing to do and most people are probably willing to do. Even if you're going to mainly use the throttle, you can get about 25 miles of range out of this. And if you're using it as a commuter, keep it charging during your workday, it'll be ready to take you home at the end of the day. As capable as this is straight from the factory, it's also a bike that's easily upgraded and customized as is your preference. You probably noticed that over the course of my evaluation, I added some accessories of my own. I added this accessory bar to help stabilize my GoPro while filming. I put my Night Rider 900 lumen light on top of that. This bag is one of the most popular RadRover accessories and I love it. I have it filled with tube repair and replacement stuff, and I can see alerts on my phone without having to pull it out of my pocket. My daughter has type 1 diabetes, so fully unplugging just isn't an option. But with this, I can see the alerts and text messages that I do need to read while not being interrupted by the ones that I don't. I'm gonna leave the motor and electronics the way they are, but even if you're the kind of person that likes to upgrade those things, you're probably gonna be out a lot less cash having started with the RadRover 5. If you want to learn more about the RadRover 5 or to purchase one yourself, be sure to check out the links in the video description and pinned in the comments. Using those links really helps out the channel. Be sure to subscribe for future videos on e-bikes, including this RadRover 5. I really appreciate you watching the Tech of Tech, and I hope to see you next time.